Good morning, welcome to Catex TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Wednesday, December 10th, 2014. You can follow us on Twitter at Catex TV. That's the tag. Well, here's an interesting story. The loss ratio for 2014 for the aviation hull industry is going to be around 1,300%. All right, that means that for every dollar that's taken in, some $13 is lost. That's as a result of the fighting around the Tripoli airport that saw damage or complete destruction of airplanes at around $600 million. It's also the result of the two Malaysian airplanes that one was shot down by the Russians over Ukraine, and the other, of course, has disappeared. And there was also $40 million from a Mozambique Airlines loss, as well as $25 million from fighting at the Karachi airport. For a brief period of time, several months ago, Jardine Lloyd Thompson, one of the major aviation brokers, reported that some reinsurers were seeing a modest uplift of rates. Modest. Most reinsurers saw a continuation of expiring terms, and some even continue to see lower rates. Now JLT is saying that some of the treaties that were renegotiated several months ago with higher rates are now being modified to reflect lower rates as more capital continues to come into the market. This is what's wrong with the current reinsurance market right now. There doesn't seem to be any correlation whatsoever to underwriting statistics, i.e. claim losses, and what the premium prices should be. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, the agency in charge of regulating insurance has seen a major purge. That would be the Financial Conduct Authority, better known as the FCA. And what's happened there is a number of high-level people have been forced out, and a number of others have lost their bonuses. It seems that FCA employees can receive up to 25% of their salary as bonuses. The CEO of the Financial Conduct Authority, a gentleman named Martin Wheatley, is going to forgo his £115,000 annual bonus. That's approximately $175,000 US. This is after a bungled media briefing led to millions of pounds being wiped off the value of UK life insurers back in March. A £2 million investigation found that the decision to provide a newspaper with an advanced briefing may have been well-intentioned, but the strategy and manner in which it was pursued was, quote, high risk, poorly supervised, and inadequately controlled. One of the recommendations from the investigation is that the FCA should introduce a way of monitoring market reaction to its statements, as one does not currently exist. One would think that the FCA authorities read the paper. But this is, again, after all, the same agency that last month sent out a questionnaire to insurers asking whether or not they had considered the impacts of global warming. So perhaps they don't read the papers. 14 insurers have lost a $22.5 million court battle over a claim for a ship that was impounded by Venezuelan authorities after 3 large bundles of cocaine were found to be strapped to its hull. In a dispute that was plagued with allegations of state-sponsored corruption, conspiracy theories, and the like, insurers argued that they were not responsible for the 7-year-old loss. In 2007, Venezuela impounded the ship called the B Atlantic after 132 kilograms of cocaine were found strapped to the hull. The ship was also carrying 34,000 tons of coal, and it was scheduled to set sail for Italy before it was impounded. The ship's owner, Atlasnavios-Navegacao, had tendered notice of abandonment in 2009 after the ship had been impounded for 2 years to insurers and then expected a claim. The insurers said that the war risks policy that was on the claim was not applicable here because it involved a customs breach. Presumably, a customs breach, cocaine, illegal, strapped to the hull of the ship, customs, makes sense. Yesterday, a UK judge handed down an opinion saying, that the proximate cause of the detention of the vessel was the malicious act of the drug smugglers who affixed the cocaine to the hull with reckless disregard as to whether the vessel would be detained as a consequence. Ship owner was awarded $18.8 million for the loss of the vessel, plus $3.6 million in interest, and the insurers will also be required to fund a portion of the ship owner's legal costs. Lloyd's Syndicate 1221 Navigators, Traveler Syndicate, the Aegis Syndicate, Argentus Syndicate, Watkins Syndicate, Allianz Global, AXA Corporate, Generali, Mapfre, and Mitsui Sumitomo are all amongst those that are on the hook. They have the right to appeal. Well, the storm of the century is hitting Britain right now as we speak. It's also being called a weather bomb. It's left a tail of destruction in Scotland, knocking out power and crippling transport networks. About 17,000 homes in Scotland are without electricity right now. Ferry crossings have been canceled. Worst hit overnight was the northern part of the UK, although forecasters are saying that 80-mile-per-hour winds are now going to hit the central and southern parts of Britain. Huge waves are also going to continue to batter Atlantic coasts, bringing the risk of coastal flooding to a very, very high level. The Met Office has issued a raft of weather warnings right across the country until the weekend with, quote, uppercase major disruption expected. And that's the storm of the century. There's a storm of the decade that's approaching California right now. It's going to hit tomorrow. Sustained winds are at near hurricane strength, with the highest impacts in the mountain areas around the northern part of the state near San Francisco, which may see gusts exceeding 100 miles per hour, are going to hit there tomorrow. Computer models indicate that mid-morning Thursday is going to see the time of peak winds. Commentators are saying because of the intensive drought in the area that has been prolonged over a number of years, such high wind rates are going to knock down many trees. Rainfall forecasts are also expected to be unbelievable. 15 separate warnings have been issued by the National Weather Service for flash flood watch, gale warnings, hazardous seas advisories, etc., etc. Amounts of over half an inch per hour are forecast. If the storm slows down, that could double very easily. Water supply in the low-lying Maldives Islands will not fully resume until next week. There was a fire last week at the water desalination plant. You may know that the Maldives Islands are basically under sea level, and once global warming begins to occur, they're going to be the first to go. Currently, the government says that they're relatively confident that normalcy will be restored in the coming week. 100,000 people live in the Maldives. They've been living on bottled water coming from India, Sri Lanka, China, and of all places, Bangladesh. Good for them. Those are people that are usually on the short end of the disaster stick. And in the United States, we see endless commercials for large vehicles. You may be seeing more commercials for larger vehicles because the price of gasoline keeps dropping. The ideas of hybrids and various other solar-powered cars have gone out the window, as gas now is around $2.60 a gallon. And why shouldn't this happen? This translates over to the aircraft market. Boeing is saying that the low prices of oil should, so far, only have a limited impact on its plans to sell gasoline fuel-efficient jets. However, if the price drops to $50 a barrel, we can fully expect to see fleets continue to use older gas-guzzling airplanes that use a lot of fuel because they just simply don't want to pay the billions of dollars needed to order the new planes. Finally, internet giant Google apparently is in discussions with the government of Bermuda about coming to Bermuda to set up a research hub and an operations hub. This was announced by the Bermuda Business Development Agency, saying that they're in talks with Google right now, as well as a number of other major players in Silicon Valley. The chief executive, Ross Weber of the Development Authority, declined to identify potential targets for creation of high-tech hub areas on the island, but says that this discussion is a long haul because companies need to go through lots of internal processes. But we are having these discussions, and we are confident. This would come as a surprise to people, perhaps who visited Bermuda as recently as 7 or 8 years ago. Internet access on the island was always spotty. Telephone access was sometimes equally as spotty. It's very good to see that Cable and Wireless and other people are so confident that they would invite Google, which is a notorious bandwidth hog, to their island. Hopefully they're going to be laying another cable soon. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.